The 22nd of June, 1941. With 134 divisions at full fighting strength and 73 more divisions for deployment behind the front, Nazi Germany, under the code name Operation Barbarossa, invades the Soviet Union, its ally, in the war against Poland. Hitler considers the invasion as part of his plan to provide the German nation with Lebensraum, meaning living space, and an opportunity to destroy communism, which he loathes. During the invasion, the German soldiers are supported by 650,000 troops from Germany's allies, Finland and Romania. These troops will be later augmented by units from Italy, Croatia, Slovakia, and Hungary. However, units from Bulgaria, which joined the Axis powers in April 1941, do not participate in the attack. The Bulgarian Tsar stands up to Hitler and refuses not only to join the war against the Soviet Union, but also to deport the Jews from within his kingdom. The name of the Bulgarian ruler, who for his defiance of the Führer will pay the highest price, is Boris III. Boris III of Bulgaria was born on the 30th of January, 1894 in Sofia, Bulgaria. He was the eldest son of Ferdinand I, Prince of Bulgaria, and his wife, Princess Maria Louise of Bourbon-Parma. His father had been the ruling monarch of the semi-autonomous Principality of Bulgaria since 1887, and the Bulgarian royal family had close ties to the European high aristocracy. Young Boris received his initial education in the so-called Palace Secondary School, which Ferdinand had created in 1908 solely for his sons. Later, Boris graduated from the military school in Sofia and took part in the Balkan Wars, which were a series of conflicts in the Balkan Peninsula from 1912 to 1913, involving several states, including Serbia, Montenegro, Greece, and Bulgaria, aiming to redefine regional borders and influence. The First World War began on the 28th of July, 1914, and Bulgaria fought on the side of the Central Powers, which included Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. Boris served during the war as a liaison officer of the General Staff of the Bulgarian Army on the Macedonian front. In 1916, he was promoted to colonel through his courage and personal example, and he earned the respect of the troops and the senior Bulgarian and German commanders. German General Erich Ludendorff described him as excellently trained, a thoroughly soldierly person, and mature beyond his years. By the time the First World War ended on the 11th of November 1918, Boris had already been a major general. At the end of World War I, Serbian troops reconquered Macedonia from Bulgaria. Under the provisions of the Treaty of Neuilly, signed in November 1919, the victorious Entente powers confirmed the incorporation of Macedonia into the newly constructed state of Yugoslavia and required Bulgaria to cede Thrace to Greece. The treaty established a limit of 20,000 men under arms permitted in the Bulgarian armed forces. A popularly elected Bulgarian government forced King Ferdinand to abdicate in the autumn of 1918, and Ferdinand's son Boris ascended the throne as Tsar Boris III. On the 25th of October, 1930, Boris married Giovanna of Italy, daughter of Victor Emmanuel III of Italy. Their marriage produced two children, a daughter, Maria Luisa, on the 13th of January 1932, and a son and heir to the throne, Simeon, on the 16th of June 1937. In 1935, Boris established a royal dictatorship. Under various governments since 1923, the Bulgarian regime supported Italian policy in attempting to destabilize Yugoslavia in the hopes of acquiring Macedonia. After 1935, Boris aligned the country increasingly with Germany in the Nazi aim of destroying the post-war peace treaty system. Boris also removed all restrictions on Bulgaria's armed forces. With the rise of the king's government, Bulgaria entered an era of prosperity and astounding growth, which deservedly qualifies it as the golden age of the Third Bulgarian Kingdom. It lasted nearly 5 years. Reuben H. Markham, former Balkan correspondent for the Christian Science Monitor, in 1941 wrote, "As a ruler, Boris is competent. As a citizen, exemplary. As a personality, inspiring. His country is to a large extent indebted to him for the comparatively favorable situation it has held in the Balkans during the last 2 decades." Markham added, "King Boris is very accessible. He constantly comes into contact with persons of every sort. He drives his car up and down the country with no special guards, and often stops to converse with peasants, workers, or children. He gives lifts to the humblest pedestrians. Rare is the Bulgarian township that does not boast of at least one person who has ridden with a king. He is without question one of the best kings in Europe. The Second World War began on the 1st of September 1939 when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. In the early days of the Second World War, Bulgaria was neutral, but powerful groups in the country swayed its politics towards Germany. As a result of peace treaties that ended the First World War, Bulgaria, which had fought on the losing side, lost two important territories to neighboring countries: the southern plain of Dobruja to Romania and western Thrace to Greece. The Bulgarians considered these treaties as an insult and wanted the lands restored. When Adolf Hitler rose to power, he tried to win the Bulgarian Tsar's allegiance. In the summer of 1940, Hitler hosted diplomatic talks between Bulgaria and Romania in Vienna, and shortly after, an agreement was signed for the return of Southern Dobruja to Bulgaria. In March 1941, Boris allied himself with the Axis powers, thus recovering most of Macedonia and Greek Thrace, as well as protecting his country from being crushed by the German Wehrmacht, like neighboring Yugoslavia and Greece. For recovering these territories, Tsar Boris was called a unifier and appeared on the cover of Time on the 20th of January 1941, wearing a full military uniform. On the 22nd of June of the same year, under the codename Operation Barbarossa, Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union. Despite Bulgaria's alliance with the Axis powers and the German presence in Sofia, Boris was not willing to provide full and unconditional cooperation with Germany. He refused to send regular Bulgarian troops to fight the Soviet Union on the Eastern Front alongside Germany and the other Axis belligerents. But there was a price to be paid for the return of historical regions to Bulgaria. This price was the adoption of the anti-Jewish laws. In the mid-1930s, Bulgaria had a population of more than 6 million people. In that year, Jews constituted 0.8% of the total population, or roughly 50,000 individuals. Beginning in July 1940, Bulgarian authorities instituted anti-Jewish legislation that excluded Jews from public service, restricted their choice of places of residence, and restricted their participation in many occupations. The legislation also prohibited marriage between Jews and non-Jews. During the war, German-allied Bulgaria did not deport Jews from the core provinces of Bulgaria. The Bulgarian authorities did, however, deport Jewish residents from Greek and Yugoslav territories that Bulgaria had occupied in 1941. The Jewish people in these territories were the only ones who did not get Bulgarian citizenship, unlike the rest of the population. In March 1943, Bulgarian police and military units rounded up all the Jews in Macedonia, Thrace, and the Pirot County in eastern Siberia. Bulgarian officials interned 7,000 Macedonian Jews in a transit camp in Skopje. In Greek Thrace, Bulgarian officials deported about 4,000 Jews to assembly points in Gorna Jumaya and Dubnica, and then handed them over to the Germans. In all, Bulgaria deported over 11,000 Jews to German-held territory, and by the end of March 1943, virtually all of them died in the Treblinka killing center in German-occupied Poland. There were, however, still tens of thousands of Jews living in the core provinces of Bulgaria, and Boris was well aware of what would happen to them if they were handed over to the Germans. Nazi pressure on Tsar Boris III continued for the deportation of the Bulgarian Jewry, and at the end of March 1943, Hitler invited the Tsar to visit him. Upon returning home, Boris ordered able-bodied Jewish men to join hard labor units to build roads within the interior of his kingdom, which served as an excuse not to deport Jews into German-occupied Poland. During May 1943, the Nazis and their collaborators planned the deportation of Bulgaria's nearly 50,000 Jews, who were to be loaded on steamers on the river Danube. This request caused a public outcry, and a campaign whose most prominent leaders were Parliament's Deputy Speaker Dimitar Peshev and the head of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, Archbishop Stefan, was organized. Following this campaign, Boris refused to permit the extradition of Bulgaria's Jews and continued the cat-and-mouse game that he had long been playing. He insisted to the Nazis that the Bulgarian Jews were needed for construction of roads and railway lines inside his kingdom. Reluctant to comply with the German deportation request, Boris even utilized Swiss diplomatic channels to inquire whether it was possible to deport the Jews to British-controlled Palestine, which, however, did not come to fruition. Most irritating for Hitler was the Tsar's refusal to declare war on the Soviet Union or send Bulgarian troops to the Eastern Front. On the 9th of August 1943, Hitler summoned Boris to a stormy meeting at Rastenburg, East Prussia. The Tsar asserted his stance once again not to send Bulgarian Jews to death camps in occupied Poland or Germany. While Bulgaria had declared a symbolic war on the distant United Kingdom and United States, the Tsar was not willing to do more than that, and at that meeting, Boris once again refused to get involved in the war against the Soviet Union, mainly because many ordinary Bulgarians had strong pro-Russian sentiments. On the 28th of August 1943, shortly after returning to Sofia from a meeting with Hitler, Boris III died of apparent heart failure. He was 49 years old. However, it is believed that Boris died from the same poison that had been allegedly found 2 years earlier in the post-mortem examination of the Greek Prime Minister, Ioannis Metaxas, a slow poison which takes weeks to do its work and which causes the appearance of blotches on the skin of the victim before death. Rumors of the death of Boris III indicate that the Tsar was poisoned by an order of Adolf Hitler, who was greatly irritated after his last meeting with the Bulgarian ruler because of his refusal to hand over Bulgarian Jews and to send troops against the Soviet Union. During the funeral, behind the widowed queen walked the cabinet and former ministers, the members of the royal court, generals, officials, the diplomatic corps, and the high clergy. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel and Grand Admiral Erich Raeder headed the German delegation, while the Italian delegation was represented by Princess Mafalda, the Queen's sister, who upon her return from Bulgaria was arrested by the Germans and later imprisoned in the Buchenwald concentration camp, where she died in August 1944. Although allied with Nazi Germany, Bulgaria remained neutral in the German-Soviet War and maintained diplomatic relations with the Soviet Union until 1944. However, as the Soviet forces approached in late summer 1944, the Soviet Union declared war on Bulgaria. In September, a military coup overthrew the Bulgarian government, a regency which had governed the country since King Boris's sudden death, leaving his son Simeon, a 6-year-old, as heir. The military government sued for peace with the Soviet Union, and in October 1944, Bulgaria switched allegiances and declared war on Germany. After the war, Bulgaria, under communist rule since February 1945, retained the Dobruja region, which it had acquired from Romania in 1940, but had to withdraw from Macedonia, Thrace, and Pirot, returning these provinces to Greek and Yugoslav authorities. In 1945, the Jewish population of Bulgaria was still about 50,000, its pre-war level. By 1948, however, more than 35,000 Bulgarian Jews had emigrated to the British Mandate in Palestine, a part of which became the State of Israel in May 1948. Most of the rest had also emigrated from Bulgaria by 1950. While Tsar Boris III rescued nearly 50,000 Bulgarian Jews, he remains a controversial character, as during his rule, the Bulgarian military and police authorities carried out the deportation of more than 11,000 Jews from the Bulgarian-occupied territories to Nazi death camps, where virtually all were killed in the gas chambers or shot. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.